Hello, I'm Eric with Aqua Schedules. I'd like to take you on a quick high-level tour of the scheduling system so you can see the different areas of the scheduling system. And if you want more information about one particular area, feel free to look at some of our other videos which will give a much more specific tour of each area and each feature by looking at aquaschedules.com/features in your browser. So I'm going to log in as the agency. This major area here is for appointments. This is how you interact with those appointments and management and all of those appointments from the initial creation up until billing and invoicing. Here we'll just take a quick minute in each of the different areas just to explain what we're looking at. Here we have the day view where you get all the information in a list. A week view, which is also a list, which is designated by now to 7 days from now. Month view, which provides an overall kind of assessment. You can click on any one of these days to go quickly into that day and find appointments. The interpreter view, which is a great way to see overlapping appointments, which shouldn't happen if the interpreter claims the appointment, but if the agency divvies out an appointment, they can cause an overlap. They'd know by seeing that -B, but sometimes they want that to happen and they're hoping the interpreter will return one of the appointments, and there's some other situations where that can occur. Billing period view, much like week view and day view, as far as having a list of all your appointments, but this one covers an entire billing period, and since this system is running at about 2,600 appointments per month, then it can be quite a bit of data to download, so it can be slow on some connections. Your search area, where you can search by an appointment identifier, which is at the top of every appointment, or you can search by a date range to set limits on the date that you want to look at. And then once you have the information, you can look in any one of the columns for additional information. Let's say we're looking for Ruth Gray. Entering that there, it filtered automatically on the client field. It's actually scanning through every one of these fields, and Ruth Gray just happened to only appear in this client field once, and it automatically filters down to that column. Now if we back out to just Ruth, we'll see Ruth Johnson, we'll see Ruth Bell over here. So you can see that this is a tool to scan through all of the information, so we can even look for a particular customer. I'll type in decanter. You can see all the appointments with that. So anyways, to not spend too much time in one area, here we can quickly add in a new appointment, and this is a generic appointment form. This can be customized quite heavily if needed. Interpreters is a way to bundle all of the interpreter information in one easy area. Free notifications will provide a list of interpreters that's marked themselves currently free, or they can specify to say something like they'll be free for the next 4 hours. So you would see their name listed there, and that's intended for emergency appointments. This field here will tell you how long until their next appointment, so long as it's within 24 hours. So since I'm looking at this kind of late in the day, most of these interpreters have already had their appointment, so we're seeing everything for tomorrow. But if we were, looking at this early on in the morning, we'd be able to find interpreters who are immediately available, and we would still want to communicate with them because maybe they didn't put a block of time that they have marked off their calendar in the scheduling system, and so it just helps you find appointments for interpreters for last minute appointments. Here's a list of vacations. Let's see if, yep, it looks like a couple of interpreters took a vacation that is for today. Now, if we were to assign an appointment right now for today and try to assign it to this demo interpreter, we would see a -V, meaning that they are scheduled or marked off because of a vacation. Here they have a weekly availability, and you can review their availability and you can make edits to their availability on their behalf. And so if some interpreters choose not to work on Sundays, they can mark off Sundays for the entire day, or say they have to babysit a child until noon on a specific day, then they could say that they're available from 12 p.m. until 8 p.m., for example. And if they do that, when assigning an interpreter to a job that will cause a conflict with their weekly availability, you will see a -O. And that -O means that they've marked themselves off based off of that weekly availability. So to review, -B means they've been already booked for another appointment, -V means that they are on vacation, and -O means they've marked themselves off based off of their weekly availability. Here we can quickly see all of the interpreters. This is the same area as what you would find here in users, and we'll get to that later. But this is a list of all your interpreters, and so if you clicked on one of these interpreters, you'd get to a control panel where you can manage their particular account. You can change details like their name. By going into this, you can help them configure their account, set their time zone, enter in their phone number and carrier, and they'll receive an SMS message instead of a regular email. You can use regional settings to break down your city or the area that you do work into different regions and associate interpreters to those regions. You can upload documents for that specific interpreter, say certifications or background checks or anything like that. You can associate that interpreter to a QuickBooks account, and if you do that, then every month that interpreter's bill that they provide to the agency is marked as an expense in QuickBooks Online, which is great for the end of the year taxes. You can add languages to an interpreter. For example, a lot of people in Ukraine also speaks Russian, so you'll find a lot of Ukrainian interpreters can also translate Russian appointments. And so if you needed to, you can assign both languages to that interpreter, and they'll see appointments for either language within the system. An interpreter has that weekly availability we looked at earlier. This is another way to get to that availability. User bundles is how you would pay this interpreter. Now in our demo scheduling system, all the interpreters are paid the same amount based off of the category of appointment. This demo has 3 categories: medical, legal, and maybe labor and industries as a third, which is billing to a third party. Since they get paid the same, this demo system didn't require each of the interpreters to have their own billing bundle, saving a lot of time in the initial startup. But if you negotiate with one of these interpreters and you approve paying them a little bit more than the rest, then you could create a billing bundle for this interpreter, and maybe instead of $30 an hour for a medical appointment, they now earn $35. With that billing bundle unique to their account, you'd be able to create that, of course, first, and then once you created that, you can set that default on the interpreter to that new bundle instead of using the universal billing bundle on that medical appointment, to stick with that example we started. You can help them by changing their password if they need to set a temporary password, say they forgot theirs. You can see a little bit of information about how many appointments they've done over the last well, since they started working. This one happened to start in November 2014. You can see their earnings and how many unbilled appointments they've left in the system from past months. Right now, this interpreter has no unbilled appointments, and you can see what kind of statuses are going on with this interpreter. So 1% of the appointments that this interpreter has gone to was patient no-shows, which is only one. This interpreter hasn't done a tremendous amount of work. It looks like about 70 appointments, and so 1 out of 70 isn't bad for patient no-shows. So to move on, you have logs. This is going to look a lot like the day view, but this is organized completely different. Where the day view is organized on when the appointment was scheduled, this is organized based off of when the appointment was created. So what that means is on the 19th, which is when requesters were creating appointments in this demo system. Since then, this demo was deployed and no additional requesters have been creating appointments into it. Our algorithm created appointments on behalf of those requesters, and then it just stopped doing work once we upload it. So that's why you're seeing some blanks after that. But now, as an agency, I could go to this page to manage appointments that are created. You'll see here that appointment created at 5:02 in the afternoon is showing up at the very top of the list. And so if the agency needed to, say, confirm every appointment as they come in before interpreters see them, then they can just go to this area and quickly see the latest appointments regardless of when that appointment is scheduled. This one's scheduled for a couple of months from now, since we're currently in February, and this one's in April. So yeah, this canceled appointments in this logs area works the same way as new appointments, except it's for any appointments that's been canceled by requesters. This area here is for canceled appointments. So this is organized by when it was canceled. When you have it organized like this, if there's some kind of resolution that the agency needs to make for appointments that have been canceled, like ensuring the interpreter knows about the cancellation, even though an email will have been dispatched to those interpreters, if the agency wants to verify by letting them know off to the side, then they can look at this area to complete that kind of an activity. Here in the logs, you can also see all of the messages that have been dispatched by the system. And we've changed it recently to show this per day, just like the day view, and so you can review those logs if necessary. So now we go into the customers area. This is a lot like users, except you're controlling customer accounts. You'd be able to open up one of these customers, and if I remember right, I'm going to type in DE, and it'll search for any segment of the word DE in these fields. And I believe it's this one that's in a large account. You can modify the general details of that customer, like the customer's name. You can merge two customers together. Say one was created in error and both of them have appointments, but it's technically the same customer. Merge them and it'll inactivate one of them, and the system will then have them all filed under one customer account, which is great for invoicing. Documents, if you have a contract or something like that, you could store that contract to that one particular customer account. You have billing bundles, and for this system, in our demo, there was multiple billing scenarios based off of the category of appointment, and this demo was built or founded off of an agency that would have different amounts depending on the customer, because they negotiated contracts for every customer account independently, so they don't have fixed rates across the board. Now, a customer can have many locations, and locations are a great tool to help guide the interpreter to the right place. Now, say you have a customer who is a whole network of clinics. Each one of those clinics can have its own location, and a location could be a physical address in this case. And so the interpreters will know as an appointment's created, it will be listed under the network as the customer, and the actual physical location that the interpreter has to go to is a subset of the customer. And this gives a number of advantages. One, that entire network can now receive one invoice regardless of how many different places the interpreter goes to. And say they are a big hospital and the interpreters could go to department like outpatient imaging or the front desk for registration or surgery. Each one of those places can be a location, all at the same physical address. And what you can do for a location is write in notes at the very bottom of this location, so that even if they all shared the same exact address and city, you could have notes in there like second floor pediatrics or anything like that, and the interpreter will be able to see those notes on the appointment to know where to go. Now, if you have your system linked over with QuickBooks, you associate the Aqua Schedules customer account with your QuickBooks Online customer account, and both accounts don't have to have the same name. And if you don't have the customer account yet in QuickBooks, you can create that by hitting a button, and it creates it automatically for you based off of the information in Aqua Schedules. If they're a pre-existing account, you link them over, and when they're linked over and you're in the billing area of the scheduling system, you can then generate the bill in QuickBooks Online automatically by hitting a synchronize button from the Aqua Schedule system. Now, just like that users area where we were looking at interpreters, this will give you a summary of how that customer account is doing, and you can see profits during that time period. This is for February of 2015. You can see total quantity of appointments. This customer account is starting to suffer because this customer is relying more and more off of video conferencing. And we recently introduced video conferencing into our scheduling systems. That way our agencies can work towards regaining those lost appointments by offering up video conferencing for those clients who are preferring that kind of a system based off of how quickly they can get an interpreter to the job site digitally versus having them show up physically. This is a pie chart of those statuses, just like we saw before. It relates to customer accounts a little better than it relates to interpreters. This can tell you how well those secretaries are doing at ensuring double bookings don't happen. You can see how often an interpreter wasn't available to an assignment there, and you can see how often patients aren't showing up to assignments there. And perhaps the agency wants to help ensure patients don't show up, so they call the night before. There's settings within our scheduling system to manage those calls, to not only write down the phone number, but also an interpreter can select a checkbox showing that they actually called the patient and record some notes based off of that phone call. So users we looked at briefly when we took a look at the interpreters. A message center gives you the ability to message in a group of interpreters or an individual. The individual can be anyone with a user account within our system, so it'll send them an email or an SMS if they have had their phone number and carrier information entered. If you want to message an entire group of interpreters for a last-minute appointment, you can do that. You can set a gender preference if you need to for something like mammogram. You can choose the language if you want to message all of the Spanish interpreters. If you want, you can even use one of your regions to message only the interpreters within that region for that appointment. Typing in the message here and hit send will dispatch that message. Try to keep these short and sweet because they will receive an SMS message, a text message, if that phone number and carrier are entered in for their user account. If it's an email, it doesn't really matter, but a lot of these interpreters will be using that feature because it's a lot easier for them to see those messages than emails. Here you have a full set of reporting that you can look at for the agency. This one will look familiar, except this is not listing information for each one of the interpreters or each one of the customers. This is an overview. So here we're seeing that our demo agency is doing around 3,000 appointments per month, give or take. And you can see the profitability of those time periods and how many appointments are unbilled. Of course, unbilled is not a great thing. So, resources is how the agency can divvy out documents and links to the right parties. For example, if there's a document that each one of your interpreters takes to their job site in order to get signed off by the secretary that's there at the front desk, for example, for the time in and time out, then you could store a document in this interpreters area and it will be shared to all of the interpreters. You can do the same thing for links. Just enter in a file name, choose the file out of your filing system, and it will suddenly be listed up there and it is accessible by all interpreters. The same thing goes for requesters, and if you want, you can share agency documents for the schedulers, for example. Billing is designed for the completion of those appointments. So generally the interpreters should be entering in the billing information after an appointment. And when they do that, it really makes the agency's life easy. The agency will then really just need to do a quick review to make sure the information looks good. So if we wanted to do a review, we could select this area. We'll choose a month period. We'll see what's going on in January of 2016. Now we're pulling about 2,500 records or so it takes a little bit to get this loaded. You can see some quick stats of details outlining the entire billing period of January. If you want, you can organize this on, say, profit, and you see those negative numbers. That was a sign that something might have been done in error. You can also have it organized by greatest number to smallest number, and you might be able to catch potential errors, and maybe this was supposed to be 77 instead of 775. I'm not sure. It can help. These negatives are interesting. It'd be something I would be looking at. You could organize it by the interpreter's name, or you could just go ahead and filter on a particular interpreter. I won't spend too much time on this, but you get the idea. Oops, I didn't mean to go to reports. Say you're an agency that doesn't do things on a month-to-month basis, and so you're sitting here looking at those monthly billing options, wondering how you can change that. Here is how you change it. A billing period you define as when it officially starts and when it stops. And we're not talking just one bill. What we're talking about with these two options is how many different listings you want to look at. See, we were looking at all of 2015 and January of 2016. This is how you define that list of how much you want to look at. We could change this right now to 2014 and leave the 1 month the same, and you can see what kind of effect I'm talking about. Going to the review area as an example, Now we've loaded all of 2014 information into this list, and so it's for looking at a list of information. You saw the other feature in there, which was the interval. So you could change that to 1 week. So you would generate a bill 4 times a month, 2 weeks for generating a bill 2 times a month, or 1 year for an annual bill, which is more practical for just getting summaries. You can see how an appointment was calculated by going into this calculation area. I'm going to enter in 100,000. This is the appointment ID 100,000. Actually, since we'll do 100,001. Hitting this calculate button will pull up that record, and you'll see how it assessed the information. Now, these appointments are relatively simple. If you have last minute fees or bonuses or travel time and travel miles, this report could get not complicated, but there'll be a lot more information to share. Now, customer billing area is where you would be sending the information off to QuickBooks or copying this information and pasting it into whatever template you have for an invoice. So we'll open up January and we'll select a customer account. We'll select it by looking at this list. If you want, you can select it here. It's the same list. This has a summary of the amounts too, so I kind of like it. We'll click on this one here just to see. Now each line item here is one appointment, and you can see the total fee that would be assessed to this customer. We could go into this print mode, which will create a whole new page and print this out, or we could just highlight this table of information, copy it and paste it into Excel or anything else, or into a Word document if that's what you're using for your invoicing. Or if you have QuickBooks Online linked up with the system, right now it says link customer to QuickBooks because they're currently not linked. Now, had they been linked, this button would be green and it would say synchronize. You'd click that button and it does the work of transmitting all of this information over to QuickBooks with a line-by-line summary of how each appointment was calculated, and then it'll be in QuickBooks to finish the closeout process of billing, which gives great tools for completing that, and it's tough to want to redesign that. So anyways, we covered customer billing. Category billing is great for third-party entities. So a third party would be like a Labor and Industries appointment, which is a government group here in Washington State that you still send the interpreters to all your existing customer locations. Say one customer is at a hospital or is a hospital, you still send those interpreters to those appointments, but instead of billing the hospital, if you don't want those appointments to show up on the invoice, you can set that category to be specialized. And when you set it as specialized, I'll show that to you real quick in the settings. Categories. Looks like somebody created some categories in our demo. I don't know if any of these are set up to be that third party. We'll just change this legal to do that, just so you can see what I'm talking about. Say legal is not legal anymore, it's L&I. And we don't want these appointments to go to the customer accounts for which they're assigned. We want it to go to a third party. Say you're doing appointments for another agency and the interpreters are still going to your customers, which have, location information, so you want to go ahead and keep assigning it to that customer, but you don't want the bill to go to that customer. Set this to no then, and you'll be all prepped to bill a third party, which will be Labor and Industries. You might want to hide those appointments to the requesters, that way it doesn't confuse them thinking they might be wondering why they assigned it to another agency and it shows up in your scheduling system, because that agency never told them that you're going to actually be there as a representative of their agency. And if you wanted, this could be for video conferencing, and this will give you the video conferencing tool in the appointments area, but in our case we don't need that, so we're going to leave that as no. So I've updated the category, so now it's a specialized category. Here in the billing area, if we go to category billing, we'll be able to see labor and industries, or should have been able to see labor and industries. So let's see what I did wrong. I'm going to go back to it. Labor and industries. I'm not sure what I did wrong. So I just edited out a segment on how a third-party entity could be billed. No, I'm not going to edit it out. I'm going to leave this in here. I'm going to go ahead and investigate right after why that didn't work. I'm guessing it didn't work because I wasn't using that category as a third party from start to finish. I'll have to consult the powers that be to figure out why that didn't work. And so, but you get the idea. If the system should list labor and industries now in this category, and we should be able to find those appointments. Oh yeah, here it is. So I selected a billing period, and now I can see those LNI appointments, or this business, which is a huge category, and all of these appointments that are listed here, like these labor and industries, even though it shows a customer of Arkansas's Heart Hospital, this customer won't see this appointment in the customer billing area. It just won't be on their invoice. Instead, like I was saying, it'll show up on this LNI invoice meant to be sent to a third party. So yeah, it works. I just didn't understand it. Now, the interpreter billing area works a lot like the customer billing area. We'll set a time period of January. You'll see each one of the interpreters and how much the agency is going to pay them. Much like the other area. If you needed to, you could copy and paste this information into any other document. Although I doubt an agency would need to do that very often. But this is here and ready to be printed. It's designed to use as little ink as possible. I'll close this to go back. And that covers the billing area. So settings is a monster. It's not a monster because it's hard to use. It's a monster because of the quantity of settings that we've built in this system in order to work with sometimes very different interpreting agencies based off of how they operate. In the billing area, you set settings regarding how appointments get billed. You could require the agency to validate each one of the appointments before it even appears on an invoice. You can set this to ignore estimates, which means if an appointment had a minimum time, an actual duration, and an estimated time, and the estimated time was longer than either the actual or the minimum, then it won't use that estimated time if ignore estimates is set to yes. But if they wanted an interpreter there for 2 hours and the minimum time's 1 hour and an interpreter was actually there for 1 hour and this is set to no, then it will bill that customer for those 2 hours. Here you can rely on the interpreter's minimum time instead of relying on the customer's minimum time. I don't want to spend too much time in the settings, so I'm going to start going a little quicker through these items. You can link over to QuickBooks here. If you set this to no, you won't see those QuickBooks links throughout the system. It'll all hide away. You can set billing bundle defaults. So when you create a new billing bundle, you can have it all pre-filled with what you use most and then make minor changes from there. This is how you create or connect and disconnect with QuickBooks. Here's personal settings regarding my agency account. Agency settings is primarily for changing the title and the footer area. The appointment settings mostly relate to when you create a new appointment, what kind of defaults your personal account uses. Some are general settings like accepting e-signatures, which gives the staff at a location a way to verify the time in and time out using an electronic signature. It's not ideal. It's best to let the requester sign into their instance of the scheduling system and manually confirm it by selecting a checkbox, because it has a much better document trail. It can't be forged by an interpreter, and but it's there and available if you so choose to use it. So if an interpreter was to complete their billing and they're still at the site, they could then hand their phone off to the requester, and the requester could then sign for that appointment. We have that set to yes, so let's take a look at an appointment real quick so I can show you what that looks like, because it is at least a cool looking feature. I'll open this up. Here you have that click to sign. This is when you would want to hand this off to a requester, and I'm on a laptop right now, so my signature isn't going to look very good, but I'm going to try my hardest to make a very legitimate signature right now. If this is a mobile device, I would certainly have much better capabilities to just use my finger to draw that out like it was a pen. I'll hit save now, and now you see that signature stored in the system right there, and it'll stay there. So now dropping that and going back into it, we should still find my signature. If I need to re-sign it, I can, if I wasn't satisfied. So going back in, we'll look at these appointment settings some more. Oh, I clicked the wrong one. You can attach documents to appointments. This feature actually isn't truly integrated in the system yet. It's we intend to have that soon, and maybe by the time you're watching this, it does work. It's something you should look at. Right now, it's February of 2016. I'd take a look at it sometime in March of 2016. It might be in there by then. You can set whether or not new appointments are active right away, which would mean that the interpreters can claim them. If this is set to no, then they get categorized by something like unconfirmed or perhaps on hold, depending on how you have your system set up. And if it's unconfirmed, then maybe the agency has to review it and switch it to active before the interpreters can see it and claim those jobs. You'd be able to control that from here. You can see these short blurbs on what this is doing, and for the most part, it should provide enough information. So I'm gonna stop talking about every single little thing, or else this video clip would be significantly longer. So we were looking at the appointment settings. Here's some general settings. You can have that system where you call the clients, customer contact. If you want to store information about who it was that called in an appointment, say that person's name, you could enable that. This is that GPS option. If this is switched on, then the interpreters will be notified whether or not they are willing to share their location, and if they choose to share it, then you could see the GPS map which draws out where your interpreters are. And you can disable them from claiming work directly, so you can stop them from claiming jobs and then take on the responsibility of divvying out those jobs. You can set them to, you can enable them to return jobs, or you can stop them from returning jobs. You can stop them from creating appointments. You can even have the system automatically assign those appointments to themselves, that interpreter, when they create it, which is great for follow-ups, but not every agency would want to use that. Regional settings. You can change some settings on what you see within the system, like choosing to hide canceled appointments. You can show different bits of information on that calendar view. You can choose whether or not the interpreter will see cancellations and on hold or pending appointments. Pardon me, as I get notifications. There's some time and currency settings that you can have in here. We saw a military time format. We could change that to, instead of a military format, a format with the meridian displayed. You can have a leading 0 or no leading 0, whatever you need. Your date formats, if you'd like to see the year, or if you're in another country that has the month first and then the day, you could use that. Or if you want it to be great for sorting alphanumerically, start with the year, then the month, then the day, whatever it is you'd like. You can change how many minute options are available on an appointment, so you can have it down to the granularity of letting a requester get an interpreter or want an interpreter right at 11:59 a.m. instead of noon if you needed to. Or you can minimize that list by using bigger chunks. And for our Euro friends, we added in their currency. We have the standard dollar here. You can control what kind of notifications are dispatched by the system. You can set this to not notify the agency when requesters are creating appointments. If requesters are creating 200 appointments per day and you want to use the email for anything else, then you might want to set that to no. Control all of those features there. You can add in additional languages into the system. Everybody wants a different list of languages, so instead of pre-filling the languages for every agency, we allow them to enter in their own languages. Statuses, you can change the name of those statuses. Sometimes I struggle to decide whether or not to call something on hold or confirmed, and I struggle because agencies can rename these, and so say you prefer it to be no-show patient instead of patient no-show, you can make those adjustments in here. Now how those statuses operate stay the same, so interpreters will always see those active appointments even if you rename it inactive. It doesn't change how the system works, but perhaps you prefer it to be called confirmed appointments, and that way when an appointment is confirmed, the interpreter then sees it. You could do that there. Here's where you can create your regions. You can enter holidays within your scheduling system here. since everybody operates off of different holiday lists, we just ask everybody to go ahead and create their own within the system. You'll see those holidays on the calendar view, and if you associate, or if you create a holiday and you have a billing bundle that has a bonus rate for holidays, then any appointment that falls under that holiday will automatically get that bonus. You can set your categories here, and we saw a little bit of that work when we worked on that specialized category earlier. And you can also create custom fields. This will conclude the tour of the scheduling system as seen by the agency. I was thinking about including the interpreters tour and the requesters tour all in one video, but I can tell that it's going to take too long, so I'm going to limit it. So, Eric Madden, signing out.